Hey everybody, it's hwsteele. Today is August 19th, 2020, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about The Tunnel Through the Air. Specifically, Robert Gordon's great campaign in cotton. Briefly, and partially, meaning that's only going to be part of this video. Although the subject matter, cotton, will be in more of the video. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. I get a lot of emails, requests, messages, and so forth from people saying that they don't know how to look for the so-called hidden information in Gann's book, specifically The Tunnel Through the Air, but it's in all of his books, all his stuff, okay? And that's unfortunate because I've shown numerous times how to go about steps to take to do that, to uncover some of this so-called hidden information. And I call it so-called hidden information because a lot of the information isn't actually hidden. It's just you gotta apply a little elbow grease to get it. Meaning you have to do a little bit of research, some calculations that back in the day, in 1927, when this book came out, it would have been very difficult to do a lot of this type of research. But today, with computers and the PDF files and the quick search functions and all that, it's easy to do this stuff, and maybe too easy because it makes it kind of takes the value away from it. The less you have to work for something, the more you tend to take it for granted, and that's not always a good thing because sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. Now, let's get to Robert Gordon's great campaign in cotton, because in this video I'm going to show a few ways things need to be uncovered, or a few ways that you can uncover things is what I should really say. So here we have on page, that's 197, page 195, Robert Gordon's great campaign in cotton. So this is in chapter 16, and I will tell you this to begin with, straight up. W.D. Gann used Pythagorean numerology in this book and his other books. Zero question about it. Okay? It is not up for debate. He simply did. So if you will use Pythagorean numerology on the English alphabet and find the value of words in the book, such as titles like this, Robert Gordon's Great Campaign in Cotton, you will find something valuable. Now here's the thing, it's not always simple. If you will find the value numerologically of this right here and then add it to Robert Gordon's great campaign in major motors, you're going to come up with an interesting number. It's something that I recommend you take the time to do and then see the value of it and then apply it to other areas of this book. So spend some time finding the value of certain words. Okay, I highly recommend that. That can be very helpful. So let's get to this, shall we? After Robert had sold out his October cotton at 1730 and his December cotton at 1750, on June 10th, he decided to watch the market very closely for a few days because he thought it would go lower. His forecast indicated last buying level around June 25th. He figured that after this time, the market would go higher until September 5th to 6th, when he figured it would be final high. Now, what we have here is a beginning date here and an ending date here. We have another beginning date here of sorts and another ending date here. We really have a date, it could be the 5th, it could be the 6th, but we're going to find out that Gann gave us both these days for a reason, okay? Now, after this first paragraph, we get one long, huge paragraph where Gann talks about, and on the next page just talks and talks and talks and talks about all his trading. One big, fat, ugly paragraph. Lots of numbers. Fun to dig into. But let's look at this. Let's do some calculations, shall we? Some very easy. You can find calculators like this. This comes with Windows. I'm using Windows 7, believe it or not, on this particular computer, and this calculator comes with Windows 7. You can use Windows Calculator on different versions also. You can find calculators like this on the internet, so this is not hard to find. And if you absolutely have to, you can do these kind of calculations by hand, so there's no reason not to. Got it? Okay, big hint there. So we have the very first date, which is June 10th. So I'm going to put in 6/10 1927. The very last date given is September 5th and September 6th. So let's go to September 5th first, 1927, and click calculate. We find that it's 2 months, 3 weeks, 5 days, almost 3 months, but it's 87 days, which is really close to an important number that you should be aware of at this point in time if you have your underlying studies in place, if you've done your underlying studies. So instead of using the 5th, if we change this to the 6th, we see that we have a difference of 88 days, and that's probably important. Seeing that is probably important. So from our first date, June 10th, to September 16th rather, are 88 days. Now if we change this to June 25th, which is the second date right here, the last buying level around June 25th, and click calculate, we have 73 days. So if we change this 6th to the 5th, right there, we will have 72 days, which is, again, probably important. So what we actually have here is this last date here connected to the first date there and giving us an important number. And then this middle date right here connected with the other middle date right there, giving us an important number. Okay, so these are some of the easiest ways to find important information in this book. You should always be checking amounts of times, the amount of days, weeks, months, years, and so forth between dates that are given. If you're not doing that, then you're either being really lazy or you, I guess, I don't know. You're either ignorant of the fact that you need to do it, which you are no longer ignorant of that, or you're being really lazy. You need to check dates all the time. Check dates all over the place. It will help you tremendously. Now let's move to, okay, let's do this instead. We have Robert Gordon's Great Campaign in Cotton, right? So we should probably look at the very first time Robert Gordon made a trade in cotton in this book, because it's probably going to be important. And that happens, it's talked about on page 66. So we're going to go back to page 66 here. And what this is right here on page 65, Robert wrote a letter to Mr. Kenilworth on January 24th. And in it, he talked about things such as, I have already made arrangements and sent my money to a broker in New York and have today bought 200 bales of July cotton at $13.80. I'm going to hold the cotton. If it goes up, as I'm sure it will this spring and summer, accumulate profits, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to look at that. So we need to look at the fact that he says, I have today, and it was January 24th, 1927, bought his first cotton, 200 bales of cotton. So again, we need to check dates. He said it was January 24th, 1927, and that first date in the cotton campaign was June 10th, 27. And we find that the distance, or the difference, is 137 days. Now I'm just going to point out to you that the price at which he bought the July cotton was $13.80. Pretty darn close, right? So we need to make connections like this because it's going to help us narrow things down and start giving us ideas of other areas to look at. So another thing that needs to be done is you need to take the time to find out how many times a word such as cotton shows up in the book. Now, I would not use this online version of Tunnel Through the Air to do that because it does not have a reliable search function. Even though you can do a search, it's not reliable. I would get a good PDF reader and a good PDF copy of the book and do your searches with that because they're much more reliable. Or you could just go through the actual book itself and do your own counts. You could print off a PDF, you could buy the book itself and do your counts. That would take a lot longer. We have the benefit of technology doing our counting for us these days. But if you do that, you're going to find out that there are a total of 115 times that cotton shows up in this book, which is probably important. Or it is. I'm not going to say probably. It flat out is. And there's also another thing that's important, which is the difference in the first time and the last time that the word shows up. Cotton shows up on page 2 the very first time. Captain Gordon was a farmer growing mostly cotton. And then the very last time it shows up in the book is on page 276. 276, right over here. And where's that? I believe that's the last one right there. 276. So the difference is 274. Now think about that for a minute. 274. What does 274 remind you of? 274 divided by 10 is 27.4. And remember that the lunar orbital period is actually 27.32. So that's pretty darn close. Now, 274, let's talk about this. Remember how we have the 137 days here? Well, if you divide 274 by 2, you have 137 days. I'd say that's pretty important, isn't it? Always divide numbers by 2 and multiply by 2. Always, 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 just to see where it takes you. Now, there's something else that's very interesting. Let's go back to this letter on page 66. Come on, there we go. Right there. If we take this number and divide it by 2 again, we get 68.9, or I'm sorry, I just gave a little secret away, 68.5. Very close to 69, right? The famous 69 that everyone talks about that in this book just happens to be in this letter that talks about this also. Everyone's like, it's cancer, it's the sign of cancer. I've got news for you. It's a number too. It's an important number. And that's where you need to be focused, not cancer. Not that that won't reap dividends, but the number side of things is much more interesting. So the 1/2 of 137, 37 divided by 2 is 168. That falls within this letter. Very close to the 69. Now, what's very interesting, if we go back to page 195, or Robert Gordon's Great Campaign in Cotton, is right over here on page 194. We find out that Robert decided to get down to business. He visited his brokers in Wall Street, talked over the market situation, and found that they did not agree with his ideas and views. Imagine that. He decided to open an office at 69 Wall Street. So that number 69 shows up right here. Things like this happen a lot, so pay attention to that, helping you make connections and put things together, okay? So, like I said, pay attention to the numerology. Sometimes it's not blatantly right in your face and you have to look and connect things with the numerology. Add this to this. Look at difference between dates, like this and this and this and this. When you see a date like this, September 5th to 6th, there's a reason for that. He's not just averaging things out. He's making certain connections. He's saying, look, this number right here, 72, and this number right here at, what was it? I can't remember. 72 plus 15, 88. Duh, right? Been a long day, I apologize. So 88 and 72 come together right at this point in time right here. And then we look at the different page numbers, the number of instances of a word, the first instance and the last instance, and the difference between those. So instead of looking at every single instance going, oh, how is this important? How is this important? Look for the differences between things. Okay, look for the differences between the dates. Look for the differences between the page numbers, so forth and so on. So anyway, that should give you right there, anyone who's actually really hard up trying to figure out how in the world they can start digging into this book and make it make sense, those examples right there should give you an enormous amount of stuff to start working with. So anyway, this is hwsteele, and I will talk to you in the next video, and that one will not be the second tunnel video that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing another video or two before I get to that last of this year tunnel video that I'm going to be doing. So anyway, I will talk to you in the next video.